Okay, so the nature of authority. So this really fell out of the last audio that I did about the nature of relationship, and it's got a. I'm going to touch on the topic of addiction as well because it's linked to that. So I'm just going to go straight into it. So the nature of authority. So in society, when we want to be free of a responsibility for something, then we empower an authority. And so a classic example of an authority is a driver licensing authority, for example. So we basically we establish an authority, and we give that authority our power. We give that authority our power to make choices and to make judgments on our behalf. And so that the benefit of that is that it means we can drive on the roads, drive on the streets without panicking and worrying about whether, there's a 4-year-old child driving the car towards us. And, we empower another authority to ensure that that initial authority is audited. And so you can imagine a cluster of organizations which we've given authority to make decisions on our behalf. And the benefit being is that we don't have to then make those decisions ourselves. We've given the responsibility for making those choices, making those judgments to a higher authority. Bit of foreshadowing there. Now, this is a very, very common, I would say, trick or tool, and human beings actually do this unconsciously and consciously. So, let's say, in my last podcast episode, I was talking about when you make someone else responsible for your happiness, or if you choose to make someone else responsible for you feeling safe. Now, I didn't touch on the topic of authority deliberately in that last audio, in that last podcast, because I didn't want to confuse it. But this is what's actually happening. You're giving your power away to an authority that's outside of your body. You're giving your authority to someone else to determine whether you're happy or not, whether you feel safe or not. And the reason this is so important is because we have to understand that the only reason we do this is to avoid responsibility. It is the only reason that we ever do this, is so that we don't have to take responsibility for something. We empower the driver's licensing authority so that we don't have to take responsibility. Every authority that we imbue with our power, because that's the only way these establishments exist. It's the only reason they exist, is so that we don't have to take responsibility. And even to the point where, like in New Zealand, we have a so-called democracy. It's always the same two political parties fighting it out, although the gap between those two parties is huge at the moment. But we've given power to that authority to make decisions on our behalf, to keep us safe, to enable us to thrive by maintaining order, by maintaining justice. And all of those things, we imbue this authority with our power. It's important to understand that the reason we do this so that we don't have to be responsible. But nonetheless, that power is ours. That power is ours. And when you vote, you are consciously choosing to give your authority to that authority. I mean, the reality is they have it anyway, whether you vote or not. But whether or not it's a conscious choice, it matters. It matters a lot, actually. Because you can still take part in the system, in the setup, and enjoy its many, many, many benefits, the huge benefits of having it in place. And but you have to understand what comes with that. You have given your power to that authority to make decisions and choices on your behalf. And the ultimate truth of that choice to empower that authority is that they have total power. In truth, they have total power. Total power. They have ownership of your physical body because of the nature of the law of statute. They can take your children away from you against your will. It's an extremely powerful authority. Extremely powerful. But nonetheless, hugely beneficial. Hugely beneficial. So, is it perfect? No, of course not. Is it effective? Somewhat. Can it be better? Oh my God, yes. Of course it can be. Of course it can be. But I think we're coming to a point now where, as a species, we're looking at, rather than just accepting that the ecosystem that contains the mechanism of democracy hasn't evolved with us. It's stayed the same since the beginning of time. It's the same framework. And unfortunately, that doesn't follow nature. In nature, every living being within the ecosystem is the ecosystem itself. And so when the participants, when the contributors within that ecosystem thrive, when they evolve, the ecosystem is evolving with it. Unfortunately, human systems and processes, we weren't evolved enough to know that that's the ideal scenario, back when these authorities were implemented. Nonetheless, I think with, such major world events happening and, radical change to our daily lives with COVID, and, cataclysmic events going on, I think we're now starting to look at these things again. And I think the generations coming through now are hyper aware of the state of the planet that it's in now. Can't really understand how we've, let it go on for this long. And it's inevitable that the pioneers of the future are going to look at these things and say, hey, this doesn't work, guys. And I think, some of us that have got some grey hairs, we can bring our perspective to the intention to create transformation in the space. But there has to be a deep understanding of what's actually going on here, how this works, the fact that it's an authority that we've imbued with our power for a purpose. And just to understand the true nature of what's in place right now, and just to understand the benefits of imbuing an authority with our power, because they're massive. And so the question is, for anyone, any pioneering thinker, and a lot of these younger generations coming through, they're very radical in their approach. They'd kind of like to see the old ways crumble to the ground and start again, rather than taking the approach that nature does to scan the environment, to look at the current reality, and to carry forward what's still relevant, and to allow what isn't relevant anymore to become obsolete. And there will always be a mechanism for a human being able to imbue their authority into another human being or into another group of human beings, to express their free will on their behalf, make judgments on their behalf. Those will always exist. But I think it's important to understand that we are the ones that have chosen to do this, and we are the ones that will continue to choose it to do it in the future. And it's for our convenience. We do it so that we don't have to take responsibility. Now, this swings both ways. And I think we're at a stage now where we're living in a society where we like being able to blame the government. We like being able to blame the police. We like being able to blame an unseen authority. And for many, many, many people, and I think this is one of the greatest challenges we face as a species, is that many people have given their power away to an unseen authority that they may call God, Allah, or a million other things in between. And it's really, really important to understand that what actually happens when you do this is it's a mechanism for you to not have to take responsibility for yourself. Because if you pray to an unseen God that you believe has power and control over your life, then you're saying that some unseen authority has control over your life, and that you're a victim to it. Now, this is energetically, you are just giving your power away like you would not believe. Because the power that creates worlds and planets and galaxies, that power, the source of that power is the light of awareness. And you actually direct that awareness. Every living being that has awareness, whatever they are focusing on within their environment, that's where energy flows. Every living being, what they are focusing upon is where that energy flows. It flows through the light of awareness, and we are the torch. What you are choosing to focus on is appreciating, whether you're doing it consciously or unconsciously. Everything you focus on is appreciating, because the energy is following that focus. And so understand that if you're focusing, and this is hyper-focused, to create an authority and to then imbue it with your power, that is so focused. It's channeling all of that power, all of that power that you could be using to focus on your own thoughts, to focus on your own feelings, to interpreting the meaning of the visions that come because of it. It means that you're imbuing that energy into a higher power, and what happens is you sit back and wait for this authority to give you something. I really want to find a new house, so I'll wait for inspiration from this unseen power. I'll just wait. I'll wait to receive something. I've been praying, I've been doing my affirmations and waiting for this unseen authority to give me a sign or some inspiration. And it will not come. I mean, you will get inspiration, don't get me wrong. But that magical moment that you're waiting for as you're passively waiting to receive, it won't come. Because all of existence is expanding through the light of awareness of every being in existence. In fact, of everything of atomic size, everything that contains radiant energy. The light of awareness is radiating through that. And that's how everything expands. Energy follows that radiant energy. And it disintegrates from that radiant state into material form. Just like consciousness, splitting, growing, evolving, adapting, splitting, evolving, growing, adapting, conquering. And it's eternal. It's just following attention. All it does is follow attention. And so what's an example of an unconscious way we imbue an authority? I mean, imbuing your authority in an unseen authority, like some kind of God that has control over you. It is largely unconscious, but it's just people don't realize what's happening physically and energetically. So it's not as unconscious as some of them, but when you understand that your attention, your focus is what appreciates everything, that's actually the energy that creates worlds, then you start to go, oh my God, so what else am I unconsciously giving my attention to? Well, of course you're giving it to Facebook, Instagram. And what happens? Facebook, it's one of the biggest organizations on the planet because that's where your attention's going. Instagram, it's one of the biggest organizations, I think owned by Facebook maybe. So what you focus on is evolving, is growing. And you're unconsciously giving your attention, your authority, and therefore your power to an unseen authority. And that authority, whether you like it or not, is Facebook. The amount of control that it has over your behavior, over your data, is a direct correlation of the attention it's being imbued with. So, that's kind of a subtle one. And I was having a chat to one of my dear mates the other day, and he was telling me about he was doing he's having a period off social media, and he said he still goes on, but he used this phrase that I absolutely love, and he says, I'm just not doing the inane scrolling. Inane scrolling. And when you think about that you are the one that shines the light of awareness. And wherever you're directing that, your attention is where energy is flowing to. And that's how the expansion of all of existence works. And then you look at inane scrolling on your phone. You're just sitting there and you're just scrolling through your feed. You're waiting to receive something from the unseen authority. Oh, there's a video from the unseen authority that I've imbued all my power with. It has spoken. It has given me something that I'm pleased with. So you see the behavior that this creates is this passiveness, this giving responsibility to this unseen authority to decide what is entertaining to me, to decide what I would like to buy. And it is controlling us. It is controlling the psyche of our species in, profound ways. Positive and negative. I'm a firm believer that, you cannot blame Facebook for being what it is. You can't. It's a byproduct of what we focus our attention onto. And it shows you very clearly that what human beings are saying is that we want something else to be responsible for what I focus on. And that's what we're getting. That's what we're getting. And so once again, everyone's got their pitchforks out trying to blame Facebook for something we've created by wielding our own power irresponsibly. Imagine now what would happen if you took that same focus, if you took that attention that you're giving to Facebook and you gave that to the next thought that came into your mind, that you gave that next thought your unconditional presence, and then you stayed with it. And then you noticed that that thought evolved into an idea. And then you continue to stay with it. You, instead of inanely scrolling through Facebook, you're inanely scrolling through the potential of that thought to become more. That thought, oh, it's become an idea. Oh, okay. So now I'm asking it questions. What if I were to, I'm inanely scrolling through this idea. What could it become? What could it become? Oh, that would be cool. Oh, I could chat to so-and-so. All of a sudden, you're inspired. It's become a vision. It's taken on a life of its own. It's now carrying you forward. And so you're continuing to give it your attention. You're continuing to give energy to it. And your consciousness is expanding. Your awareness is expanding. Emotions are being evoked. And you have a vision for a creation. And the fruition of that creation will result in profound fulfillment for you. You are deciding what brings you that fulfillment, not some software application. Oh, those videos on Facebook when they pop up, they're all just the same, aren't they? I mean, they're super targeted. They can obviously see what I'm into. They know what I'm into, but so many people trying to get my attention. And all we need to do is to give our own thoughts attention. You know, if we were able to inanely, to take that inane scrolling and inanely scroll through our own thoughts, all of a sudden, the appreciation that we've been giving Facebook, we're giving to ourselves. And you will expand and grow in the same way that Facebook has. That's where we want to direct it. So, you know, and again, I really want to be specific about this, that we're not doing anything wrong. We're just becoming aware of these things now. You know, once we become aware of them, we can begin to nurture the next thought that comes about it. You know, we've had a realization, okay, this isn't ideal. Okay, I'm starting to realize that I'm wielding my power somewhat irresponsibly. I can forgive myself because I just didn't know. Now I know. So what do I want now? Okay, so I'm going to inanely scroll with this thought. Where does this head to? Okay, how do I actually want to grow myself? Okay, I want to grow in this way. So how can I give that attention? How can I give that attention? Okay, well, that'd be cool. I'm starting to see a vision now. You see? Starting to see a vision, and then you allow that vision to unfold. And when it stops unfolding in your mind, then you give something else your attention. Whatever you perceive as the obstacle preventing that vision from going beyond where it is now. Okay, my vision stops there. So why is my vision stopped there? What do I need answers to? What do I need to formulate questions about? And so you ask the question, and then you stay with the next thought that comes, and it evolves and becomes more and more and more. And all of a sudden you're creating your own life, every aspect of it. And it's only based on what inspires you. You're in the driving seat again. You've become the authority in your life again. And it's as simple as that. What are you giving your attention to? Yourself? Or someone else? Or something else? And so the next point I want to make about this, and this will be controversial, nonetheless, it's true to me. And that's the topic of addiction. Now, I will do another podcast episode on addiction itself, but I'm just going to come straight out and say it. Addiction is not real. It is not real. Addiction is simply another unseen authority that we give power over us. It's a way for us to not have to take responsibility for choices that we make. In the same way with the driver's licensing authority, we don't want to make the decision about who's safe to drive on the road. So we imbue something else with that authority. It's the same thing. We say that addiction is a disease so that we don't have to take responsibility for the choices that we're making. Whether it's to drink a beer every hour of every day. Addiction is not causing that. It's a decision to drink a beer every hour. It's just a choice. It's just a choice. And by saying that there's an unseen authority that's making that choice for us, you're giving your power away. You're giving your power away. Now, I want to have compassion here because there's a valid reason why you're having that beer every hour. I'm not saying that there isn't. Nonetheless, it's your guilt and shame for wanting to drink a beer every hour of every day that you're avoiding by calling it addiction. But understand, it is physically impossible to drink a beer without choosing to drink a beer. It is physically impossible to smoke a cigarette without deciding and choosing to smoke a cigarette. It doesn't happen without you choosing. So by saying that addiction has you, you're saying that you didn't make that choice or that something else made it for you. Understand that when you make that choice to have that beer, what's actually happening is you're weighing up the pros and cons of having that beer versus not having the beer. And you're saying the perceived consequences of not having the beer are worse than having the beer. And you're saying, so I'm choosing the beer. It's not a disease. It's a choice where you've actually weighed up the pros and cons. Now, I'm not going to go into the driver behind addiction now. I think I'm going to save that for another audio, but I will touch on it right now. So with addiction, it's about pleasure. It's about pleasure. And people who are more addicted than others are more resistant to pleasure. And you might say, well, why would you be resistant to pleasure? Why would anyone be resistant to pleasure? And the reason is simple, is because pleasure means, to many of us, it means debauchery. And the definition of debauchery means to indulge pleasure. And there's a tremendous amount of guilt that human beings carry for indulging in pleasure. And so rather than have to deal with the guilt and the shame for wanting to pleasure ourselves, again, it's linked to debauchery, we would rather say, addiction has got me. I can't control it. That means you don't have to own the decision to be debaucherous and to pleasure yourself. The irony is, the more resistant you are to pleasuring yourself, the more signals your body is going to send you to move towards that thing. And here's why. It's because you're not just one thing. A human being is a hybrid of multiple things. One of those things being your spirit. Your spirit or your soul represents the part of you that experiences sensation and emotion. And the nature of your soul or the nature of your spirit is to experience the full spectrum of its potential to experience emotion. And notice that I'm not saying the highest potential, I'm saying the full spectrum, meaning the shadow and the light. And so that's part of your nature, is that you want to experience pleasure. You want to pleasure yourself. You want to eat sweet food. You want to take ecstasy. You want to experience ecstasy. It's an authentic desire of your spirit. And so if you are in resistance to that part of yourself, then you will feel drawn to those emotions, and the ideal gateway to those emotions is through drugs. And that carries more guilt and shame, and therefore, rather than having to accept that I'm choosing to snort cocaine all day, you're saying addiction has me, therefore you don't have to reconcile the guilt and the shame for wanting to pleasure yourself in that way. Because if you resist the desires of the soul, which is to experience and indulge pleasure to the full potential, that's what your soul wants. If you resist that desire of your soul, then every part of your being is going to be pushed towards it. I want to experience pleasure. I want joy. I want ecstasy. It's part of your nature. It is part of your nature. Now, am I saying go out and do drugs? No, of course I'm not. But what I'm saying is that the more resistant you are to experiencing those things, the more intense the push towards it is going to be. And so, what's the solution? It's not as black and white as I'm making it out to be here, because there's so many emotional aspects to it. But what I do know is that when you can own your desire to experience pleasure, when you can recognize that you do have a desire to seek pleasure and to indulge in pleasure, which means that you want to be debaucherous, then that drive within you, that need to move towards it, all of a sudden it's gone. Because you've owned it. You're not in resistance to it anymore. And that's at the essence of when we feel like we can't control our urges, it's always because the drive underneath it is we're repressing it. We're repressing a desire that we're too ashamed to own. You do want to experience pleasure. You do want to make love to people. You want to have sex with them. You are being aroused all the time. You do want to pleasure yourself in multiple different ways. Sexually, emotionally, in a multitude of different ways, by eating different kinds of foods. But once your resistance to that pleasure is resolved, once it's reconciled, you won't be drawn to them in an unnatural way. You won't be compelled towards them. They'll just be choices. And this is one of the big things I think that's going to impact, diabetes is a classic one. Insulin resistance. When your body is resisting insulin, it's basically your body rejecting the sweetness of what you've eaten, namely the pleasurable part of it. Now, I'm not a doctor or anything like that, and I'm not saying that's the only component to it, but it's really, really important to understand the nature of who you are, that there are parts of you that want pleasure and they want it intensely. And the more you deny yourself pleasure, the more you'll be compelled towards it. So addiction, another authority that we imbue to make decisions on our behalf when we are not ready to take responsibility for those decisions ourselves. Addiction, just another unseen, unconscious authority we imbue with our authority so that we don't have to be responsible. So, yeah, I know that'll be the first time you ever heard that. I know that for sure. Again, this is my truth. I'm not saying that you have to accept it or believe it. I think it's inevitable that it will evoke emotions within you, but my hope is that it awakens something within you that recognizes the truth of it. Okay, so that's it for the nature of authority. Okay, cheers for now.